Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll be getting started in the next couple minutes. I do want to give people some time to get in and join us. So we'll just provide those folks a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. All right, we'll get started now with the webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening for our fall and winter edible gardening. My name is Olivia. I'm with the City of Palo Alto Utilities, and we also have Loretta O'Brien here as well as our instructor. I do want to provide a little bit of context now that we're on Zoom doing this webinar. Everyone is automatically muted. And throughout the presentation, we are going to have you guys hold off on questions until the very end because this is a longer presentation and we do want to ensure that we get through it. But we will get to your questions at the end. I also encourage you as we're going through the presentation to use the question and answer box at the very bottom and start putting your questions in. That way they're fresh in your mind, but we'll get to them at the very end. So we'll see those. You can, at the very end, we'll also ask if you would like to raise your hand and speak for questions as well. And I also want everyone to be aware that this webinar is being recorded and that we'll be sharing the recording tomorrow, and also we'll be sharing the presentation slides as well. So if you feel like you missed anything, don't worry, we'll be sending those over. All right, so just a little bit of background. The Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency is helping put this wonderful webinar on. They're a regional public agency that plays a vital role in ensuring reliable, high quality, and fairly priced water. They supply about 1.8 million residents here in Santa Clara County. They were established in 2003. And now they represent 26 different members, which includes cities, water districts, and private utilities, such as the City of Palo Alto. And they really have a focus on conservation efforts, which is why we work so closely with them and why we're having this webinar today. All right, so their key program objectives are maintaining water reliability, protecting water quality, managing water costs effectively, planning for climate resilience, and then fostering regional collaboration, and then also ensuring that we're engaging the community, whether it's through workshops and webinars like these. All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of information on different ways that you can save money when you're trying to also conserve water at your home. So the City of Palo Alto offers a large array of different rebates to the city. One of our most popular is our landscape conversion rebate, where you will get $4 per square foot replaced. We also have a handful of different stormwater rebates, which is a perfect time right now because we're going to start going into that rainy season. So we do have rain barrels, cisterns, pervious pavement, and rain gardens. We also offer a gray water rebate of $400 as well. You can get all this more information on how to apply at paloalto.gov/ways to save. And I can share that link in the chat at the end as well. So continued on to how more ways you can save. So City Palo Alto also offers all residents Water Smart. So this is a free program that all residents have access to where you can view your hourly water use and also get customized notifications, including leak alerts to your phone, either a phone call or text or even an email. And then also you can get free recommendations and tips to conserve water at your home. So really quick and easy to sign up, really helpful tool for residents here. And we also offer free mulch and free compost. So also please take advantage of that as well. All right, so we also offer a handful of different home electrification rebates. I won't go all into all of them because there are quite a few, but I do want to highlight that we have a new heat pump HVAC rebate of $2,500, so pretty generous. And it's good to know that the federal tax credits are sunsetting at the end of this year. So you're no longer going to be able to claim that federal tax credit that you used to get for putting in these electrification in your home. So it's a really good time to, if you were thinking about making the switch, the time is now. Right? Some other ways to save. So in addition to our rebates, there's other rebates through Santa Clara County as well that you can take advantage of. Bosqua offers a $200 rebate for rain barrels and offers a $1 to $4 per square foot rebate as well if lawn replaced. These are stackable with the City of Palo Alto rebates. So more bang for your buck. They also offer a smart controller rebate and installation program rebate and offer a rain garden rebate. Once again, this is all stackable with the City of Palo Alto rebates. Right, so I will be sending these, again, I'll be sending these slides over, so I'm not going to go into all these resources, but there's a lot of different resources out there to get started to conserve water at your home and really enhance your garden. And I do want to highlight some upcoming webinars. You can go to Bosqua/Conserve Programs classes to find all these webinars that are coming up. There's a lot of great other ones out there. And then with that, I would like to introduce Loretta O'Brien. She is the co-founder and director of the Pacifica Gardens, a 3/4 acre food bank garden on San Mateo coast. Loretta has been gardening most of her life. She has a training in bio-insensitive mini farming and permaculture. She is a San Mateo County Master Gardener, where she is a member of the Social Specialist team. So with that, I will hand it over and I'll stop sharing my slides. Thank you, Loretta.
Okay, everybody can see okay, it looks like.
Yes, it looks good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Olivia. I really appreciate being able to do this webinar this evening in November. So some of the things, the concepts that we're going to be discussing tonight are about fall and winter gardening. This is a little bit late for some crops, but we'll let you know which ones are going to be good for your garden right now. So the first thing that we're going to do is get to there we go. We're going to review some principles of water-wise gardening in general, go through some concepts for your fall edible garden, look at some crops that are going to be good crops that you can grow in the fall. And if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about cover crops. So cover crops are a really good topic to discuss for fall and winter gardens. And included in the slide deck are a few slides on how to build a compost pile in your backyard. If you're not composting at home and you want to learn how to compost, in a few slides, I've included those on the slide deck. So the keys to water-wise gardening that we need to discuss are creating a garden plan that minimizes your water use. So the concept of using the right plant, planting it in the right place and at the right time. Where there are some planting methods that help us minimize water use, specifically proper spacing, propagating your seeds ahead of time and transplanting, and a couple of other things. We'll look at soil improvement. A lot of us don't really think of soil improvement as a water-wise concept, but it very much is, because as our soil is improved, it actually holds more water and requires less watering, and there's less erosion, etc. We want to talk a little bit about watering effectively and efficiently, looking at the possibility of using drip irrigation. We want to protect the soil throughout the year with some mulches and certain ways of planting things. This video, which will come to you is as a live link, is a it's a great video. It's very short. It's about 20 minutes, created by Sonoma County Master Gardeners on growing in kind of a warmer climate. It's not going to be pertinent for the moment right now, but it's a really good thing to take a look at when you get a chance. So when we talk about gardening, garden plan to minimize water use, the right plant, right place at the right time, we have to take a look at the time of year. This is November. And so what I have, this image here is just really a cropped out version of the last couple of months of a planting calendar that the UC Master Gardeners in San Mateo County put together. And so we have roughly, you're in Palo Alto, so it's for the warmer section of San Mateo County. So it's going to actually work for Palo Alto. You'll see that the plants that are like the best plants to plant right now, it's November, are garlic, lettuce, onion, and radish. So not a lot, but say, a couple of days ago, we had these as options. So fava beans, broccoli, and some other cool weather crops as well. I was just at the nursery in Half Moon Bay, and there are lots of seedlings that cool weather seedlings that you can still get in, if you're, in the next few days. This link here for the planting times, this is the entire calendar, and I would take a look at it so you can actually see what you can plant in January. So one thing that we want to pay attention to is when we're planting vegetables in general, we want to plant even fall, summer, spring, plant veggies that have similar watering requirements and growing times together. So for instance, your lettuce and your spinach, and say even your radishes, those would be better to plant together in the same bed area versus planting your zucchini or cucumbers next to your lettuce. Okay, so they have different water requirements, and they also have different growing times. So trying to, like, when you're planning, trying to get as much as possible the plants that have similar water requirements and growing times, put them together. And carefully consider the water needs of the crops that you grow, especially when we're in a drought. So a couple of years ago, severe drought, and sometimes, especially for our spring crops, we're looking at some vegetables and fruit that people like to grow, for instance, watermelons and big cucumbers and those kinds of things, big pumpkins. Those all take a lot of water. So, take those all into consideration. We want to also then integrate some planting methods to minimize water. So using proper spacing. So use an in-bed spacing chart. I have an example of one on my next slide. When we plant the plants together at the right space apart from each other, we're going to maximize our water. We won't have a lot of space between them that we're going to be wasting water. So there's an optimum in-bed spacing for each vegetable crop. To reduce water use, we can germinate the seeds in small pots ahead of time and transplant. We can also use this hexagonal planting method. This on the left at the very beginning, these are lettuce, which are going to be about 9 inches apart. If we plant in a hexagonal pattern, what happens when the plant gets larger, the leaves the plants will grow together. It actually will cool the soil, kind of creates a living mulch, and will also help minimize water. And of course, then weed regularly to help prevent competition for water. This is just an example of in-bed spacing and days to maturity for some common fall crops. So when I said so, we're looking at trying to plant things that have similar growing times. We can see these days here, like carrots are pretty long, right? So we may not want to, plant them next to our bush beans, which are going to be fairly short. Okay, so you can kind of see just basically these are good examples of of in bed spacing, how far apart, and then how long it takes the plant to mature. Then soil improvement. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, increasing your improving your soil and creating living soil will also help reduce your water use. So if we increase our soil organic matter, we are going to increase our water holding capacity of the soil. So typically, we're looking at if we had a soil pie chart, if we're looking at like the water, a regular the minerals versus the pore space for water and air. We're looking at a fairly small amount, like maybe 5 up to 8% of quote organic matter. If we increase our organic matter and get it up to a healthy percentage, we will actually increase the water holding capacity of the soil. So in the fall, I like to do compost, add compost twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. Add some compost to your planting beds that you have now, approximately an inch, and then you're just going to mix it in about 4 inches of the soil. If you're harvesting or finishing up harvesting your summer crops, instead of pulling them out, just cut them off right at the soil level and leave the roots in the ground. Leaving the roots in the ground helps for a number of reasons. It's going to help add organic matter to your soil. It's going to continue to provide nutrients for the living microorganisms in your soil. And so we don't really necessarily want to pull them out, just sort of like cut them off. And then if you can use cover crops will also increase your organic matter. It will keep the soil living throughout the fall and the winter. Watering, most of us who have been growing food in California kind of already know this. We've gone through a lot of droughts, but we just need to remind ourselves certain things. We like to avoid overhead sprinklers. So, and most of us have already done that, but just kind of keep that in mind. If you have the ability to use a drip irrigation system, do that. When the rains come, and they're starting to come, consider turning off that watering system and then just sort of using it as needed so that you can just sort of turn it on, turn it off. But if you're on a regular timer, you can turn that off, especially when we start having regular rains. If you're hand watering, use an adjustable nozzle that can allow for a gentle rain and with an on and off valve, so you're not dragging a nozzle all over your garden and spreading water everywhere, wasting water. And then water early in the morning, and or water 2 hours before sunset. There's that heat of the day. We want to avoid watering because we just get too much evaporation. And now in the winter, we really need to be the farmer that's just sort of, wandering around in our garden, testing and putting your hand in the soil. Only water when your plants need it. And you can dig down about 4 inches, 4 to 6 inches into your soil and feel if the soil, if when you grab a little bit of soil and into your hand and then open it up and it kind of stays in a little clump that's not really gooey or anything like that, that's your optimal. If when you open up your hand the soil falls out, then you probably need a little bit of water. If you're feeling like that you're squeezing water out of your soil, then you probably have it's probably too wet. So those just kind of some easy ways to kind of, it's a very low tech way to see how much water, to see if your garden needs watering. Water slowly. Okay, so if you're watering by hand, water slowly. You don't want a heavy stream that is going to wash soil away and sort of drown everything. Water slowly and to avoid runoff, all right, and soil erosion. And now's a great time too, if you're going to have a relatively small garden, to install some rain barrels, and there's great prices on them too. We want to protect the soil. So this idea of having bare soil is a concept that we want to sort of like try to remove from our brains. If we leave a garden bed bare all winter long, lots of really strange things will happen. Well, first of all, you probably get a lot of weeds. You get a heavy rain, you start washing your soil away and creating a mess in your yard, and you are literally you're just wasting water. Do your best to mulch between plants in all year round, but you can also mulch between plants. That will also help with weed suppression as well, but then keep the plants nice and moist. Use organic mulches. You can use leaves, straw, pine straw, coconut coir. I live on the coast. We don't have a lot of deciduous trees, but I know in Palo Alto and other parts of the Bay Area, there are lots of leaves. So those maple leaves, gather those, use those for mulch. You can also buy a straw bale. And if you have pine trees, you can use pine as well. If you want to purchase coconut coir, of course, you can do that. And then, as you mentioned, we want to plant cover crops during our off season. I do want to suggest that the possibility of using shade net to cover garden beds between plantings. So if I'm digging and I'm preparing a bed and I'm not going to be able to plant it for a while. If I put a shade net, I have a lot of shade net hanging around. So if I put a shade net or burlap or something over my soil to protect it, it actually acts like a removable mulch. And you can mulch it too as well, um, um, between plantings. Just we want to avoid bare soil. Okay, so cool weather cover crops are going to improve and protect the soil and hold water. So these are all great concepts. Okay, we just talked about mulch here. This is an image of cabbages. This is a great time if you're planting cabbages, get a good 2 or 3 inches of straw around them. It'll hold water and protect the soil for all winter long. Also, too, I want to just to talk a little bit about arborist chips. A lot of times we have access to arborist chips, and they're great. Making sure that they're disease free. If you have a relationship with an arborist who has chips, sometimes they'll deliver them to your house. Sometimes you can collect them from a neighbor or whatever. Arborist chips are really good for fruit trees and other perennials. For veggies, they're a little, it's, not your optimal, but, if that's the only mulch you have, then, go ahead and use it. Okay, so let's look at preparing of the fall garden. I'm assuming that you're looking at a fall garden. Most of you probably already have gardens, so we're not going to talk about how to build a garden bed or whatever. But just sort of like as you're kind of moving from your spring to summer into the fall, uh, decide how much of your edible garden that you would like to have planted in the fall. So a lot of times, like I have 4 pretty good sized beds in my backyard. I don't plant all 4 of them in the fall. I have some sun issues that I have to deal with. And plus two, it's just about like how much time am I really willing to spend in my fall garden as we're rolling into shorter days and weather and holidays. Okay, so if this is your first fall garden, make sure that you start small. I always say this, start small, show, like have some success, and then and then you can get bigger as you go. And so right now in November, it's going to be a little bit late to start germinating seeds. So if we're planting any crops right now, I would go to the nurseries and pick seedlings that are already germinated. And we already talked about considering planting cover crops, and any beds that you're not going to plant in vegetables. make sure that you do plant a cover crop in there. Plant something, otherwise you're just going to get, weeds and, going to be degrading your soil over time. With your clippings and your crop residue from your fall garden, if you can, if you're making your own compost, now's the time to make a lot of that compost. I am an advocate of home composting. I know not everybody has the ability to do that, or you just don't want to do it, but it's actually the best way to create compost for yourself. The biggest thing that we have to consider for our fall garden is day length. So we here in the Bay Area, the day length in December is still around 9 hours, which is plenty of time for most of our crops, but we might have some barriers. Like I said, in my garden, two of my garden beds are now shaded completely by my neighbor's tree. So if I have my little pointer here, so in the summertime we can see the path. Right, in the northern hemisphere we can see the path of the sun. Right at noon, the sun is pretty much right overhead. And then in the fall, this is our southwest side here. We can see we have a very short path. Okay, that 9 hours is sort of low in the horizon. So if there are trees and fences and whatever, sometimes those things can create shade. And if too much shade, you won't be able to grow very much. So examine the shade issues from fences, trees, and nearby houses and buildings, and find your sunniest locations. So fruiting vegetables like beans and squash, I would say right now it's too late to do beans and squash. If if we were talking about like September, you can put in a late crop, but it, for next year, they're going to need about 6 hours. Root vegetables are going to need 4 to 6 hours. Cool weather and leaf vegetables lettuces and spinach and chard need about 4 hours. And so, even lettuces can do okay in some, partially shaded areas. But try to find the sunniest place that you can. We don't want to try to grow lettuce in full shade, okay, or anything in full shade. Daytime high, you have to think of temperature as well. So we're all in the cool weather crop section right now. We're still overnight lows are still pretty warm, so we're still in the mid 50s. We will drop, but we can get the brassica, and our cool weather crops in and get them in now, and they'll do okay as we're getting colder. Okay. Normally, we like to get our fall crops in late August, early September, so the plants can get established during the longer days and the warmer temperatures. They tend to do a little bit better. But I just planted chard a couple of days ago in my backyard. It's doing fine. I don't know how big it's going to get. So that is one thing that we want to remind ourselves, that fall veggies that we're putting in will be a little bit smaller. So chard that I grow midsummer in the coast is going to be quite a bit bigger than it is going to be in the fall and in the winter. Okay. So the root crop seeds, and when we looked at that chart, the only root crop that's a really good one that you can seed right now is going to be radishes. So it's a little bit late. However, I've been experimenting with other seeds, putting them in later and later because of climate change. If you have a thermometer and you can test your soil temperature, and if it's still in the 60s, you might want to give it a shot. And if your daytime high is still in the 60s, maybe even the 70s, you can try to plant some seeds into your soil now. But the best bet right now for this time of year is locate a good source for cool weather crop seedlings. Most nurseries are carrying them right now. Okay. And of course, check your seed packets. Sometimes you'll find something that is kind of been bred for cool weather or colder climates. So sometimes you can find some special things. As I mentioned before, we are looking at adding some compost. So previously planted beds are going to require minimal preparation for fall crops. If you have a brand new bed that you haven't planted at all and you want to do fall crops, it's the similar thing. Want to make sure that you remove any crop debris from your summer crops. Again, we are just cutting them off and leaving the roots in. Loosen the soil if you feel like there's any compaction. Over time, as your soil improves, you'll dig less and less. In fact, we're kind of going that way anyway with the regenerative gardening, where we're doing no till or very, very minimal. We don't want to be turning things over. We're just going to be kind of loosening things up a little bit and then adding the compost, and then kind of just chopping and raking it into about 4 inches of the soil. I want to talk just for a minute about fertilizers. Fertilizers, we obviously are not going to be using chemical fertilizers, but even if we do add some high nitrogen fertilizers, there is something called the soil food web, which is this natural cycling of lots of nutrients, especially nitrogen. If we add too much nitrogen to our soil, we actually interrupt that normal soil food web. So only use fertilizers, organic fertilizers, if you really need it. Okay. If you add a good amount of compost, you probably won't need it. Okay. Want to avoid over fertilizing. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the things that we can plant. Um, the cool weather vegetable crops are going to be your leaf crops, the brassica. So that's anything in the whole kale, collards, broccoli family, some root crops, and herbs. So herbs are a great fall, winter a vegetable to try to grow. And they're actually quite fun. You can do them in containers. Some legumes like peas, green beans, and fava beans. It's like I said, it's a little bit late to do green beans right now, but snap peas, I just saw them in the nursery today. So you might, and we're still fairly warm, you might want to give it a shot. And the fast growing cool weather varieties of zucchini and cucumber can often be planted in the fall garden. However, they should have been planted pretty much in early September. So if you're planting right now, I would really focus on the cool weather vegetable crops, your leaf crops, chard, kale, collards, and broccoli. Leaf crops are really great to get going because you can continually harvest them. So if you're into succession planting, you know what that means, where you'll plant a few plants, wait a couple weeks, plant a few more plants, wait a couple weeks, and then you have a continuous harvest. Okay, you have like there's this continual growth. And then there's also some of these gourmet lettuce mix where when you get it going, when you harvest it, you're only going to be cutting a few leaves. So this is a great way to extend an entire planting of leaf crops. So leaf crops are going to require less sunlight, right? They can tolerate some shade, as we've mentioned before. Lettuce and arugula may need some shade in the warmer fall days. I think we might be beyond that because lettuce doesn't do well in direct sunlight, and arugula can bolt and become bitter if it gets too hot. But arugula is also part of the brassica family. It is fast growing. If you ever have had an arugula salad or you like arugula, this is a great time to plant it as well. Chard and spinach may need row cover in the early fall. When we are still in that overnight low that's like still in that mid 50s and we have warm sunny days, we might need to row cover them to prevent something called leaf miner damage. So this looks like a burned leaf, but this is actually is leaf miner. So we always grow our spinach, chard, and beets under row cover. But as soon as it's not, as soon as it gets cool, we can take it off. So if there's some questions about that, I can answer that more at the end. So like we said, after the temperatures are cool, you can remove your cover crop, and chard plants will often overwinter. Spinach has a little bit of a shorter period, shorter lifespan, but chard, once you get it growing, you'll have chard all winter. There are several really good varieties of kale if you enjoy kale. My new favorite one right now is Siberian kale because it actually does grow really big. Even though, in the winter, I said earlier that almost all your fall plants are going to grow a little bit, are going to be a little bit smaller, but Siberian kale produces really nice big leaves during the winter. Kale, for the most part, is very pest resistant in the fall and winter. Collard greens are also really a really good crop for the fall as well. It's the same family as kale, and they make great wraps, and they are also pretty pest resistant, except for slugs and snails. Other brassica that are candidates for your fall garden are broccoli, Gailon or Chinese broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower. And some of the so you have to kind of figure out what you want. I don't plant in my own home garden. I don't plant cabbages or any single harvest, uh, um, um, brassica, because I really don't have the space for it. Just so I mean, like this cabbage here, this is just a golden acre, and it's like takes up like 18 inches. So for me, that's a lot. But if you have more space, they do very well in the fall garden. All of your brassica in the spring months, spring and summer, are going to be prone to cabbage looper. If you've ever seen that's the lovely little white butterfly with the purple dots on its leaves, yeah, so that's a cabbage looper or cabbage worm, and aphids in the warmer months. Fortunately, the brassica, these pests, are not really active in the fall, so we have less of that. I like planting a broccoli that actually grows side shoots. My favorite one is DeChico. It has a smaller head. Once you harvest that head, then you are going to get all these little small little side shoots. And you can harvest these little side shoots, or they look like, baby broccoli, all winter long. So it's sort of between a like a lettuce or a chard where you have multiple harvests, compared to a single harvest crop. It's if you take care of the plant and make sure that it doesn't produce flowers while you're growing it. You can have broccoli for several months. Chinese broccoli is also a great candidate. You can get those as seedlings as well. It's fast growing, grows much faster than regular broccoli, and it tastes similar to broccoli, although it's just a little bit more bitter. If you've had it before, the flowers, the leaves, and the stems are edible. Cabbage, again, we just talked about cabbage a second ago. I like the smaller sizes of cabbage for your home garden. Like I said, I don't do it because I just don't have enough space. That even though it's a single harvest crop, cabbages store very well. So you can grow one big giant cabbage, and you'll have it for a while. You can share it with your neighbors. And the leaves are densely packed, as we know, so there is a considerable amount of food yield. Other brassica that you might want to consider are cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, Savoy cabbage, and tatsoi. The cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and the Savoy cabbage, I would say, are vegetables that I wouldn't start as a beginner. They tend to be a little bit more pest prone and sometimes a little bit more difficult, especially the Brussels sprouts. Root crops, we kind of already kind of mentioned them. Carrots, beets, radishes, rutabagas, and turnips. Those are all great fall crops. And at this point, as I mentioned before, radishes are pretty much the only ones that you should be growing from seed at the moment. You'll have a better chance waiting a couple of months, like in February, where you can then plant your carrots, some beets. And if you're into rutabagas and turnips, turnips do as well. Okay, radishes are really fast growing. They're very satisfying, especially if you have children. They're very fun. They will mature in about 4 weeks. Okay, so the other root crops, carrots, beets, and rutabagas, they take about 9 weeks to mature. So that's a little bit longer. That's why I don't really like to plant radishes and beets, say, close together in the same bed because they take a little bit longer, take quite a bit longer than the radishes. Thing about beets is that the beet greens can be harvested and you can eat them along the way just as long as you don't cut all of the leaves off while you're trying to grow a beet. Beets are also prone to leaf miner, just like chard. So just keep that in mind. Although this time of year, or even if you haven't planted already, great. Wait a few months, you can start planting them. You probably won't need anything to cover them. Bunching onions are also a great fall crop. Bunching onions or scallions, green beans, they don't make a bulb. I mean, green onions, they don't make a bulb. They can be grown all year round. Experiment, it's not recommended right now. They are kind of slow growing. Whether they would germinate right now, I'm not sure. They probably would germinate inside. You might want to, so again, we're kind of not an optimal, planting moment here in November. But planning for the future, bunching onions, great. Garlic, okay, so you can still order garlic and get that in. So if you've ever grown garlic before, now's the time to get it in. If you've never grown garlic before, Peaceful Valley Farm Supply has videos of how to grow garlic and a lot of articles. Some of the other seed companies do as well. For are some of our herbs here. Chives are really good as well. Now I would buy them as a transplant from a nursery. They grow very well in pots and they're a great addition to your winter herb garden. So let's talk just 1 minute about legumes, and then we're going to be running out of time here pretty quickly. Legumes right now, it's a little bit late, but most of the time, your sugar snap peas, snow peas, shelling peas are all good cool weather crops, and they can be either direct sown or transplanted. Most of them will need some kind of trellising. It's a little bit late for green beans, but green beans can be planted in August for fall harvest. I don't like to plant pole beans. They take at this time of year, but they take too long to grow. And plus, two, when the windstorms come up, they start blowing. Fava beans actually can be planted right now. So if you're interested in either eating fava beans or using your fava beans as a cover crop, now's the time to plant them. Um, the mature beans, like this image right here, they must be shelled, all right? And then there's a lovely another little skin around them that also needs to be steamed off. They're a little bit of work, but they are really, really delicious. And like I said, they can be part of your cover crop strategy as well. Under normal circumstances, the cool weather varieties of cucumbers and zucchini can be planted. Again, it's too late to do that, unfortunately, but for next fall, consider doing something like a dark green or black beauty zucchini or the Marketmore cucumbers. They do very well in cool weather. Herbs are great. Like I said, if you've never had a fall garden before, herbs are a great way to start. Right now, you can get perennial herbs, thyme, sage, rosemary, marjoram, oregano, parsley, which is not a perennial, but it's a biennial. But you can get transplants for those, and you can put them in pots. That's my favorite way to grow herbs. That's how I do it. and they are naturally very water wise, especially our thyme, sage, rosemary, and oregano, marjoram take a little bit more water, but not a lot if you're putting them in pots. So let's see, what do we have here? On time, I'm just going to switch, Olivia. If I just can talk a little bit about cover crops, and then we'll end here. We have a couple more minutes. So the definition of a cover crop. If you've been gardening for a minute, you know what a cover crop is. If this is the first time you thought, what the heck is she talking about? We're talking about crops that were not growing to eat necessarily. And so that's going to be anything that is planted to enhance your soil fertility, preserve your soil structure. Okay, that can be called a cover crop. And cover crops can be, there's lots of different types of cover crops. They can be planted either separately or as mixes. Most people, when the first time they plant a cover crop, they usually will just buy a commercially mixed, right? So when you look at it, it looks kind of like granola. So it'll have a few legumes in it, and it will also have some grains in it. And cover crops can include wildflowers a lot of times, or native wildflowers as well, and some root crops like such as daikon radish. So there's lots of different things, lots of different types of cover crop. And when you're selecting your cover crop, in the farming community, it's like, okay, well, wait a minute, I have to like select my cover crop for my need. For us as backyard gardeners, if we have a cover crop that has some legumes and some grasses and maybe some, agricultural mustard, that's a good mix. Okay. There's lots of terrific functions of cover crop, and they are a valuable component of crop rotation. As we mentioned, they're going to improve soil structure and fertility, prevent soil erosion, suppress weeds, hold water in soil, and maintain the microbial life in your soil. So we get a lot of really good things happen. The legumes are going to fix nitrogen. The grains that are in there, usually that's going to be oats or rye, are going to grow organic matter into the soil. If you have clay soil, a daikon radish will help break up the clay soils. The flowers will attract beneficial insects. It's a food source for insects and birds. And like I said, it's an important component of sustainable and restorative gardening, all right, and farming practices. So they are typically planted at the end of our main growing season. So that's now. And then the early spring, you can either chop them down, leave them in your bed, and plant into them. And so that's sort of like the green manure idea, or you can chop them down and then actually incorporate them into your compost building if you're building your own compost. All right, so we talked about the fava beans here. So I'm just going to kind of run through the types of things that we can have in it that are normally will be in a cover crop mix. So a lot of times you'll have a bell bean, which is a type of fava bean, some other legumes like vetch, biomaster peas, Austrian winter peas, alfalfa, and clovers. And like I said, usually they're going to be in a mix. Also, usually mixed in are going to be some grains. So specifically like oats and cereal rye, those are terrific. Okay. Again, you can purchase these all separately if you want. Um, and let's see. So, if you do plant fava beans or bell beans, those are going to be planted separately from the rest of the mix because that's a big bean and we need to get them at like about an inch in the soil. Everything else you can just sort of broadcast and kind of chop into your bed. Okay, let's see. After planting, all right, so after planting your seeds, you're going to need to hand water probably daily until the cover crop actually germinates. And then once it's established, you need very little water. Okay. And you might need to do a little bit of weeding, but probably not much. So we'd like to consider planting cover crops for sustainability, right? Specifically for producing your own compost crops. So I'm going to stop there, I believe. Yes. All right. That's it. Okay. So I kind of flew through the cover crop section, but I think we have a couple more minutes for some questions.
Yeah, so we'll open it up to everyone for questions. So Loretta is here to answer questions regarding the fall and winter edibles. She had a lot of great information, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding any of our rebate programs we offer through the city and any of the resources we offer. I did see some questions come in through the question and answer box, so I'll start
Okay.
with those first. The first one, oh, we may want to go back to a slide, but the question was, what are the numbers after the name of each vegetable on the slide? I think it was one of the very first slides you had for the planting calendar slide. Sorry, it's a bit back there. I think it was one of the first. There, or
Was it
there.
this?
Yes, I think that was, or no, keep going. The planting calendar. That I think it was. Yes, this one. So I think they were asking, what are the numbers after the name of each vegetable? So,
It's actually not a number. It's either an S or a T. So S means seed and T is transplant. So for November, and then like garlic comes in sets. Lettuce, you can either seed or transplant. Onions, right now you're gonna plant those in sets. Now, if you've never planted onions or garlic, the idea of a set is that comes in a little package, all right, with a little kind of like a it looks like a little bulb, and then you're going to go ahead and plant that. And then the radish is you're going to plant that as a seed. So does that make sense?
that makes sense to me. Thank you.
Mhm, mhm.
All right. So another question we have in the Q&A is for the soil tips you are giving. Do you have different tips for raised beds versus in-ground beds?
Right, good question. For and I don't really completely understand why totally. But for your raised beds usually are going to require more compost than um, your in-ground beds, and it's usually I believe it's because the beds themselves, the the raised beds are kind of like containers, and they get a little bit warmer and the organic matter seems to get eaten up a little bit faster. That's the only thing I can kind of like think about. But um I would still, for your in-ground bed, unless you've been growing it for a very long time and you know that there is lots of really good soil life in there, and you do have a higher percentage of organic matter in there, I would still use that 1 inch of compost in the fall and in the spring.
Okay, great. Thank you. Uh, Jumping down to the next question we have here in the Q&A, is there any place for the use of coffee grounds in the garden?
Right. So, coffee grounds were a while ago. We were, using coffee grounds on our blueberries, trying to lower the pH of the soil. Coffee grounds are they don't really lower the pH, unfortunately, but they are organic matter. I I incorporate my coffee grounds into my compost pile. I do home composting. So I don't really apply it directly to any of my plants. So I would say the best place for your coffee grounds is in your home composting bin.
All right, so we have a question here in the chat that this is my first year gardening and I have one raised bed garden, so don't have much space. 1/3 of that is strawberries. Can I plant things like radishes, garlic around the strawberries, or should I transplant the strawberries to something like a tower garden? Do I have space to grow anything else for the fall?
Oh, so 1/3 of the bed is strawberries right now, and the
Mhm.
other 2/3 is nothing in it. Yes, you can plant things in there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, leaf crops would be great. Lettuce does very well when we think about lettuce next to strawberries. They're really good companions. And you might want to plant a row of garlic or two as well. But I would do strawberries, lettuce. Whoops, let me do this here. Strawberries, lettuce, and then garlic at the opposite end. But yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. This is awesome. Good for you.
Great. Right. So that's all the questions I see in the chat, but I do want to encourage everyone that you can raise your hand. So there's a raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen. So if you feel more comfortable raising your hand, I can then grant you permission to speak and ask a question. So I do encourage that. And of course, I'm always encouraging for those to also put any questions in question and answer box as well. I had a question actually when because I have a lot of fruit trees. Do you have any advice for winter for fruit trees specifically that I should be thinking about and protecting them or preparing them?
Yeah, so for your fruit trees, this is a time of year to if they're healthy, right?
Mhm.
Is to mulch them. Put a lot
Mulch.
give them a lot of mulch. And if you have extra compost, layer your compost down first and then put your chip mulch on top of it. Also, too, you can plant fava beans or bell beans. You know, kind of like well before you mulch them, right? Get some. Just kind
Hmm.
of drill them in. If you broadcast them, that's going to be the birds will eat eat the seeds
Yeah.
beforehand. Just try to drill them in a little bit. So it's a yeah. So this time of year, I'm like right now at the big garden, we're mulching and composting the entire orchard. Yeah, so protect your soil, and just then afterward, let the leaves as the fruit tree leaves come off. Just let them land where they land. Just leave them there. Don't wreck them up. I mean, unless you have disease, right? But if they're normally healthy, then just let your leaves fall and get them mulched with some chips.
Great. Thank you. We do have one hand raised, Kathy. So you have to unmute yourself, but you should be able to speak.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
Mhm.
awesome. Um, I was the one who asked the question about the strawberries. Thank you very much for your answer about that.
Mhm.
So, like the other 2/3 right now has collard greens and various other things. So that's
Oh,
why I was asking about if I could just stick the like other things in between the strawberries.
oh,
But
in between the strawberry
yeah,
plants.
yeah, like
How,
would it overcrowd them?
yeah, probably. How far apart are the? So we have collard greens in the other bed, in the other part of the bed. Yeah. I would say because right now it's the time for your strawberries to. They're probably not producing very much right now. Is to really kind of
Right.
like like prune them severely, and
Oh,
yeah. So and then just kind of let them stay. If I mean, I transplant my strawberries all the time. I just sort of like dig them up and put them in a different bed or put them in a different pot. If you feel like you've got a veggie bed right now where you have collard greens and you might want to plant some row radishes or two or some lettuce, and maybe you want to take the strawberries out, but you'll probably overcrowd them if you try to just kind of poke around and plant in between them without seeing it. It's hard to say, but if your plants are 8 or 10 inches apart, you try to plant other things in between. It's going to be a little bit. It'll be a little bit tight.
okay. And then I I don't really understand about the composting and mulching. I currently have like straw on top of my bed as the mulch. But then how do I add the compost then? Do I just put it on top of the mulch, or do I move aside the mulch and put on the compost, or do I just remove the straw altogether and put on new straw after I put on the compost?
Yeah, so just take your rake and just sort of like, rake your straw over to one side and then apply your compost. And then you can just put the straw back over. Yeah, you don't need to replace the straw. Just, if you, I mean, sometimes if you put the compost on top of the straw and you do a light watering, it'll kind of trickle down a little bit. But it would be better if you could put the, soil, compost, mulch. That would be your best way to do it.
Right. Thank you so much.
Oh no,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Mhm.
It is 7, but we do have one more question, so we'll do this one last question. In the Q&A, we have, my herb garden looks wild. Should I be pruning more often? It has cilantro, oregano, rosemary, marshmallow root, sage, etc. So,
Mm.
advice for the herb garden.
So your cilantro is mine. Yeah, I don't mind a wild garden. Some people, like, oh, it doesn't look very neat. So it just really depends. But cilantro is a fast growing annual and it'll be going to seed pretty soon. So if you want to save your cilantro seed, which will be coriander seed, just let it grow. That's totally fine. The woodier ones that can kind of get all over the place. Like oregano can get a little woody. Once it flowers, it will kind of like put this little stick up. You can kind of like trim them down. You can, trim them to, make them a little neater looking, but then also it'll stimulate the growth as we move into the winter months. Trying to think of what else was in there. Rosemary.
Rosemary, marshmallow root, and then sage.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
sage.
it's citronella, not cilantro. Sorry.
Oh,
Citronella, not
oh,
cilantro.
not, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've ever grown that before. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, y- you know, I kind of let them just kind of grow wild a little bit. The perennial herbs are kind of slow growing. It's really up to you. You will get more kind of healthier looking leaves if you do trim them a little bit, kind of, give them a little bit more shape to it. It's completely fine. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it if I were you.
Great. All right. That's all we questions we have. I do want to remind everyone that we will be sharing the slides tomorrow as well as this recording. So if you missed anything or if you have any questions, we will be providing the contact information and all the slides and links in a later email. And with that, I want to wish everyone a good night and thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. That was great.